After a month of not playing poker, we fly out to Dallas, Texas. We're going to try out the new TCH Social Club. We buy into the 1-3 game for the max, which is 300. Wish us luck. Let's climb out of the hole. Just as we sit down, we get involved in a hand with deuce 5 suited on the button. We get a bottom pair and a flush draw we call the flop in turn bets. Our opponent gives up on the river on a queen high board, and we win versus king jack that had the gutter for the straight. So we're going to start off the session with some extra ammo. We're going to start the session off with aggression. We looked at a 10-9 suited on the big blind. There's 2 late position limpers, and the small blind decides to raise it up to $26. So now what do? We have 10-9 suited. We're not heads up, and there's many limpers. I think this is a great candidate to 3-bet squeeze and take down the money now. So we're going to put in $75. I don't think we have to go too big. Our 3-bet looks very large. We just sat down. We have a clean image. And what ends up happening is the 2 late position limpers fold, and back on the small blind, he calls. After this action, our opponent does feel quite strong. We're putting him on high face cards, high pocket pairs. And now we're going to go to a flop. It comes king, deuce, king with 2 hearts. So we have a flush draw. And we can also represent this king. So this flop smashes our range. And when he checks to us, we don't need to go too big or too small. We're going to make it $60. Our opponent calls rather quickly. The turn is the 4 of clubs. Our opponent checks to us, and now what do we want to do? After putting out a continuation bet on this king, king, deuce board, it feels like our opponent's not going to fold to another C bet. We have a flush draw, so it's unlikely that he has one. And if he does have a strong pocket pair, like let's say jacks or 10s, I don't think he's going to fold to another barrel on the turn that's a 4 of clubs, especially here in Texas. So we're going to check this back, and we're hope to hit the river and just realize the equity we have now. The river is sadly the jack of diamonds. He checks to us, and we go into the tank for a little while, but I still don't think a bet check bet is going to get through against a high pocket pair. So we check back, and luckily we were right. Our spidey senses were going off. He has pocket queens. I don't think he was going to fold to any size bet. We probably would have to triple barrel, but even that might not work. So we start off with a loss, but we do dodge a bullet. If you're looking for a fun place online to play, check out the Cheddar Club. The link is in my description. If you refer somebody, everybody wins and gets a sign-up bonus. And they have PLO tournaments, high stakes, low stakes, everything you're looking for, and a lot of action. So click the link in the description, download Telegram, and join their group message and get started on Club GG. It's an app you can play on any device, anywhere in the world. This next hand, we have 7-6 of spades, a beautiful hand. The best hand to crack pocket aces, actually. Pretty cool statistic. So we're on the button this time. The cutoff raises to $25, and we decided to tread cautiously because he raised much larger. There's no other raise or limp behind him. He just opened to 25 on a 1-3 table. So this is screaming strength. So we put in the chips, and then so does the big blind. We're going 3 ways to a flop, which is king 10-6 with 2 diamonds. And then surprisingly, the big blind leads for $50, and the cutoff folds. All right, this is sort of peculiar. It seems like our opponent's on a draw of some sort, or he's just setting a price for his flush draw, or he could have top pair and he's just playing his hand very face up. So all those thoughts are going through my head at this moment, but I think with bottom pair, I guess we can continue. It feels like we should just snap fold here, but in the moment we decide to get sticky. And then the turn rewards us for our stickiness. There's the 7 of clubs. Wow. Okay, so we have bottom 2 pair here, and our opponent still continues his aggression. $100 he puts out in the felt. And now it's on us. What do we want to do with bottom 2 pair? This hand can be vulnerable. Let's say another king comes or another 10 comes. It'll counterfeit our 2 pair and give our opponent a better 2 pair or trips. So we want to tread pretty cautiously. We decide to go for value here and jam for $220. That's all he has left in his stack. And then he ends up snap calling. So this is the worst situation. The river peels off the jack of hearts, and he turns over king of hearts, 10 of clubs. So we lose to a higher 2 pair. He just leads on the flop. I guess it does have a lot of draws, and we could have got out of this, especially with such a weak hand on the flop, but this is what happens when you get sticky and want to punt. Not everybody in Texas is trying to give you their money, and this guy got max value from me, so I'm the whale. We're obviously going to add on, so just in case we get pocket aces versus pocket kings, we get the max in return. And don't forget, if you guys want to join me on my poker journey, subscribe and turn notifications. I post weekly vlogs. In this next hand, wow, this is probably the most bizarre and wild hand I've ever played in a double board bomb pot holdem hand. All right, we're going to freeze the frame here. We have 8-7 of hearts. All right, we're in a double board bomb pot. Everybody puts in around $5 on the flop, and It checks all the way around, and now we're here on the turn. The top board is the one closest to us, and the bottom board is the one closest to the dealer. On the bottom board, we have a flush draw plus a straight draw, and on the top board, we have a straight flush draw. So on both these boards, it could be very likely we can win this if we hit both the rivers, and this is where the action gets absolutely bananas. I'll let the action begin. We're on the turn here, and the small blind, big blind check. It gets to the early position players, and the under the gun player makes it $20, and then 2 other players come along. Now it's on us. I think we want to raise and get this heads up. Our hand is very strong now, and it could be very strong on the river. So I raise it up to $100. And then the unthinkable happens. The cut off the button, the small blind, and the original raiser who first put the chips in the middle all call the $100. A lot of action here, but it does not stop. It gets to the under the gun 2 position player who called the original bet from under the gun, and he decides to now back jam for $600. This is an incredibly strong play. So when someone does this, they're saying they literally have the nuts on one board. So it folds back to me, and we're getting incredible odds here to win a massive pot. We only have $320 in our stack, and we already put $100 out in the middle, so it's $220 more to call. And by the way, this under the gun 2 player covers everybody that's in the pot. So this jam is enormous, and there's a couple big stacks on the table. So I put in the call. I end up having $317 total. The cutoff folds, and then the button calls the $600, and then the small blind calls for less, $250, and then back to the original raiser in this pot when it all started, and he puts in the call for $300. I couldn't really calculate the pot because of how wild this was and all that was happening, but it was around $2,000, and if we won, we would quadruple up. So if we win this, we're going to make $1,200. Now, we decide some of the players are going to put their cards in their backs. I show them all my outs and my flush draws, and we're up against pocket queens for a set on the bottom board. So we have to dodge any board pairing cards that would be a heart. So now we're going to the first river on the bottom board, and it comes to the deuce of spades. So we're going to lose that one and the chance to win half of this pot. But we still have the top board, and if we hit our out and we're good, we're going to make a decent sized profit. And the river comes the 3 of clubs, and we completely whiff, and all we have is 8 high on both boards, and we're sadly going to lose this one, but we do get some verification. It was queens versus 5-4, so we were dead on the top board, and we're only live on the bottom board. So we get queens all in pre-flop versus a mystery hand. Our opponent only had around $70+ in his stack, so we get a little bit of profit, and this leads us into the next hand. We have pocket 9s in the small blind. Under the gun raises to $10, the cutoff and the button call, and now it's on us. I think we want to squeeze here. We decide to 3-bet to $60. It gets to the under the gun player, and he jams for $300. This is a new player who just sat down. So we have no reads. We've never seen his cards or how he plays, so this is a very strong play. And what's really important to me is how long I took. I took around 2 minutes, and most of the time I'd find a call here because I'm just sticky. But I've really been trying to practice on being more disciplined and releasing hands and being less sticky, because a good poker player knows how to fold as well, not just call. And that's something that's taken me a long time to learn. So we release, and later on he did tell us he had ace king, and I'm okay with this. And now we're going to get to the next hand. We look down at ace 3 of diamonds in middle position. The action starts off with under the gun. He makes it 15, early position and middle position call, and now it's on us. A perfect squeezing opportunity, but Funky decides to just call. Not really like our play style. I guess we had a live read at the moment. I don't remember exactly, but we put in the call, and the button comes along as well. So right now we're going many ways to a flop, which comes 9, deuce, 3 with 2 clubs. We have middle pair and an overcard. It checks all the way to the button, and he decides to make it $35. And this is a perfect moment to release, but Funky decides to call and get a little sticky. I think this is okay sometimes. People on the button decide to bluff a little more often than people out of position, so that's what's going on in the back of my head. The turn, the 4 of hearts. I checked our opponent, and he makes it $60. This feels more like he's either going for value or he wants to get a cheap bluff through to see another club. My thinking might be a little skewed here in Texas, as I'm just assuming a lot of people are bluffing, but it is what it is. We put in the call. The river comes the jack of hearts. It feels like a blank. I check to our opponent, and he gives up. We show ace 3, and he flips over 9, 10 offsuit for a higher pair. He has a higher pair and we lose this hand. This is an embarrassing pot. This is just the reality of poker, and sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong, but the goal is to make the least amount of mistakes and just the right amount of calls. And I think we could have found a squeeze here and also a fold on the flop. So just want to share my experience with you guys, and we're gonna get on to the next hand where we look down at a very better hand. We get two matchy pointy cards, pocket aces. We're under the gun this time. We make it $15. It folds all the way to the button. He 3-bets to $45. And he has a short stack, so we decided to 4-bet just a little bit under that stack. We don't need to go too crazy. If we jam, it looks very strong. If we 4-bet, it might be perceived as weakness. So we make it $110, and he jams. We put in the call. This is a 300 pot. The board runs out. We show, and we're going to scoop this pot, man. It feels so, so good. Just a quick hand. We profit $150, and we get to this next hand. The king 5 of hearts. We're in middle position. There's two limps to us, and sometimes with the suited king, I'm going to get a little goofy, and this is going to be one of those times. I raise it up to $20. One of the limpers call, and we're in position here. The pot is $40. We're going to a flop, which is 7-7-8 with one heart. We have a backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw possibilities, and one over. Nothing crazy. I make it $15, and he calls. The turn is the 5 of spades. He checks, and I think we should be checking this back, but our opponent is a wild card. And whenever that is a factor in the hand, I tend to go for thinner value than normal. I know that some of his straight draws do get there with his hand, like 6-9, which is definitely possible in his range. So he checks to us, and we're going to make it $30. And then he does something pretty goofy. He min raises to $60. Very, very weird. I put in the call just because I think this guy can be creative with some raises here. And the river's the queen of spades. He decides to continue betting. He makes it $95. And we decide to get very, very sticky here. We throw in a black chip signifying a call, and he shows us a hand that beats us. 7 of clubs, 10 of hearts. So we limp called 7-10 offsuit versus my raise. So we know we're on a good table, and we want to target him and be in more hands with him. But we do pay him off this time, embarrassingly. All right, we look down at Big Slick, a.k.a. Ace King. We're on the button this time. There's 4 limps to us. We're going to raise up to $30. We just want to go bigger here in Texas. If we don't make it big enough, a lot of these people are going to call. Only the big blind and middle position player calls, so we're in position to 2 players. The flop comes King 9 Jack Rainbow. So the only hand that beats us now is Queen 10, King 9, and King Jack and Jack 9. This is definitely a wet board, so I think we should be going bigger here. So when it checks to us, there's around $90 in the middle, and we decide to make it $40. So a little bit under half the size of the pot, and the big blind calls, and the middle position player folds. So now it's on us. The turn is the 9 of spades, pairing the bottom card. I don't think our opponent's going to be calling with just a 9. This just smashes our range, and I think that we showed a lot of strength. So I'm just going to perceive this as a blank. So when our opponent checks to me, now we're going to start going for value. I think we could have sized up a little bit, but the bet we make in person is $80. I think this is just a little too cheap. It felt like he was on a draw, and I wanted to give him a really good price with a worse king, like King 3, King 4, King 5, King 6, all those suited kings. And also for jacks as well. So that's what we're targeting here. And he puts in the call rather quickly. The river is the 3 of clubs. This is such a dry card and a great run out, and this would be the perfect card to stack another king. So that's what we're going to target, another king holding like King Queen, King 10, etc. So we decided to go all in for around $200. Our opponent finds the fold after 30 seconds or so. I'm assuming he had a jack of some sort. So getting 2 streets of value with ace king, nothing feels better. So in this next hand, we look down at King, Queen, offsuit in late position. There's 3 limps as always. And I raise it up to $20, and we get 2 callers, the big blind and the middle position player. So we're in position to 2 players. The flop comes Jack, 9, Deuce, Rainbow. It checks to me. We have 2 overs and a gutter to the nuts. The 10 would be the dream card. So I bet $15. We don't need to go too big here. I don't think there's really any point to do it, especially when we're bluffing here, and we can fold to a re-raise if necessary. So when we put the $15 out, both opponents call. And then the turn is the most magical card in the deck, the 10 of hearts. It does introduce a flush draw, but we have the nuts. We have the best possible hand right now. So when it checks to me again, I think we should still be sizing up here because we definitely do have King Queen. And I think my bluffs would want to do the same. So we make it $65. I think sometimes I'd like to check this if I had a single pair holding, but we're going to represent a strong hand. So that's why we put the chips out, and only the big blind comes along and the middle position player folds. The river's the 6 of diamonds. All right, we look at our opponent's stack, and he only has around $70. So it seems like he's already pot committed, so we're going to put him all in for 70. He puts in the call, and we show him our nuts. So yeah, this is awesome. Nothing feels better than running good in poker. All right, we're up against our same friend who had the 7-10 offsuit hand that limp called a raise. We look down at queen 9 of diamonds in middle position. There's 2 limps and middle position 2 player, that same player we're talking about, action. He makes it 10, and we're going to 3-bet and isolate him. The goal is to get in a pot with him heads up. We make it $35, and what ends up happening is exactly that. He calls, and now we're going to a flop, which comes queen high, queen 7 deuce. He checks to me, and with a queen with a weak kicker, most of the time I would be checking this. We don't always need a value on ourselves, but versus an action player, we want to get value from all possible queen holdings and pairs of 7s, pairs of 8s, 9s, 10s, and jacks. So we decided to put out $30. And then surprisingly, our opponent check raises to $90. So this is a 3x sizing. He's saying he has a strong hand like pocket 7s, pocket deuces. And I guess he could have queen 7 or queen deuce suited. He's a wild card, and he only has $50 behind him. And I think this is a very pivotal decision, especially in my future plays against players like this. What do we do here? Do we want to call or do we want to fold? Because I think when he's representing strength, it's pretty face up that he is strong. There's no flush draw. There is no straight draws. This is the quintessential, like, dry board. So there's nothing going on, and I think we can find a fold here with our weak queens almost 100% of the time. But we decided to do something a little frisky and very, very light. We decided to go for an all-in and go against any sort of like random bluff that sometimes can be a spaz factor in some of these players. So we decided to put him all in. The board runs out, but he turns over a hand that we lose to, queen 7 of clubs. So I think we could have gotten away from this, but this is a good learning lesson against players like this where we want to get action from him, but also release when they show any signs of strength. So now we're going to get to the final hand. We're racking up. We're in the game for so much money, and we're about to cash out for a big loss, but we look down at a hand, pocket 9s. I know a lot of people are saying you're going to lose here because playing from the rack is bad luck, but let's see what happens in this hand. 9 of clubs, 9 of hearts in middle position. There's 1 limper, and we're going to raise it up to $20. Late position, the button, and the early position limper all call. So we're going 4 ways to a flop, which comes jack, 9, jack. We flop a full house, 9's full of jacks. And when it checks to me, I don't think I would be ever c-betting this board, even with like queens, kings, and aces. This is just too wet for me to ever continue on. So we're going to keep this in our check range, and we're going to check this. So it checks all the way around, and the turn comes the 5 of clubs. The early position player checks to us, and now I think it's time to bet. We don't need to go big here, and I don't think we would ever want to go big here unless we had a jack. So we make it $25. Late position and the button decide to put in the call. And then the early position player folds. The pots are on $155 now, and the river is the queen of clubs. So the backdoor flush draw gets there, and some weird straights get there as well. So I think it's time to go for value against those exact holdings. So we make it $125. It gets to late position, and he goes all in for $350. The button folds, and now it's on us. All right, I mean, I didn't come here to fold a full house, but damn, this feels so strong. We lose to hands like queen jack and jack 9, but that's very, very unlikely. And the only hands that really beat right now are pocket 5s and a jack holding that might be going for value, which I think is possible. And maybe an ace-high flush draw would go for this as well. But it just feels like he has a really, really strong hand here with this exact layout. So I decided to put in the call, and he flips over a hand that we beat, pocket 5s for a cooler. I did announce my cash out early, so I didn't hit and run. I said that this is going to be my last orbit, guys. So we end up cashing out, guys. And we're in the game for $1,200. We end up cashing out for $930 for only a loss of $270. So we battled back. We made back some of those chips. And I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.